She has options, most attention, people trying to impress her every day. So let me ask you something. Why would she choose you? If your answer is, I'll try harder than everyone else, you've already lost. Because the men who chase the hardest are rarely the men who are chosen. Stay with me, because by the end of this speech, you'll understand a truth most people never learn. Attraction is not built by begging for attention. It is built by becoming someone whose presence feels rare, calm, and valuable. Before we begin, answer this honestly in the comments. Are you trying to be chosen, or are you becoming someone worth choosing? Write your answer below. Most men enter attraction with the wrong goal. They try to win approval, they perform, they impress, they constantly ask themselves, does she like me? Powerful people ask a different question. Do I like who I become when I'm around her? That question changes everything. When your self-worth depends on someone choosing you, you become anxious, you overthink texts, you fear silence, you lose your natural confidence. But when your self-worth comes from your character, discipline, and purpose, you stop chasing validation. And that calm confidence is magnetic. A woman with many options notices the man who is comfortable with himself. Not the loudest man, not the man trying hardest, the man who is grounded. If this message is helping you build real confidence, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It helps more people develop self-respect, emotional strength, and authentic relationships. And you'll never miss future lessons like this. Another mistake is trying to create attraction through performance, memorized lines, exaggerated stories. Pretending to be someone you're not. Temporary performance may create temporary attention, but it cannot create lasting connection. Real connection is built through authenticity. Speak honestly, listen carefully, respond thoughtfully. Let her meet the real person, not a character designed to impress her. Trust matters more than performance. People feel safe around consistency. If your words change to gain approval, trust disappears. If your actions match your values, trust grows. And trust is one of the strongest forms of attraction. Never abandon your standards to keep someone interested. The moment you tolerate disrespect, ignore your values, or become available at any cost, you communicate that your self-respect is negotiable. Healthy attraction grows when two people respect themselves and each other. And finally, build a life that would still feel meaningful even if no relationship existed today. Pursue your goals, strengthen your body, develop your mind, protect your peace. Create a future you are proud of. The person who has direction becomes far more attractive than the person whose entire life revolves around being chosen. Remember this, you cannot control another person's choice, but you can become someone whose presence feels valuable, trustworthy, calm, and difficult to replace. That is the real secret. If this message changed your perspective, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And always remember, the goal is not to make someone choose you over everyone else. The goal is to become so grounded in your purpose, character, and self-respect that the right person chooses you without you ever needing to chase, beg, or compete for attention. One of the biggest misconceptions about attraction is the belief that gaining another person's attention should become your primary goal. Many people assume that if they can simply say the right words, give enough compliments, or constantly prove their value, they will eventually be chosen over everyone else. This mindset often leads to frustration because it places your confidence in someone else's decision instead of your own character. Real value is never created by chasing attention. It is built through the qualities you develop when no one is watching: discipline, integrity, emotional stability, purpose, and consistent self-improvement. These are the traits that shape lasting confidence and naturally influence the way others perceive you. People who constantly seek attention often become emotionally dependent on external approval. Every delayed message feels like rejection. Every disagreement becomes a threat, and every interaction turns into a test of self-worth. This creates pressure that is noticeable in conversations. Instead of enjoying the interaction, they become focused on impressing, convincing, or avoiding mistakes. Ironically, this pursuit of validation often pushes people away because confidence cannot grow where approval is constantly being chased. Building real value requires shifting your attention inward. Instead of asking how to become more attractive to someone else, ask how to become a stronger version of yourself. Invest time in developing useful skills, improving your physical and mental health, keeping promises to yourself, and pursuing meaningful goals. Learn to communicate honestly, manage your emotions during difficult situations, and treat people with respect regardless of what you expect in return. These habits strengthen your character and create a quiet confidence that does not rely on compliments or constant recognition. Real value also changes the way you approach relationships. You stop viewing every interaction as an opportunity to prove yourself and begin seeing it as a chance to discover whether there is genuine compatibility. This removes unnecessary pressure because you're no longer trying to earn your worth through another person's approval. Instead, you are simply allowing two people to get to know each other honestly while remaining true to your own values. Over time, this mindset transforms the way others experience your presence. Calm confidence, self-respect, and genuine purpose are qualities that cannot be convincingly imitated for long because they are expressed through consistent behavior rather than rehearsed performance. Whether a relationship develops or not, your sense of value remains steady because it comes from the life you are building and the person you are becoming. That inner strength allows you to connect with others from a place of authenticity rather than desperation, making your presence more meaningful, more confident, and far more memorable than attention ever could provide. One of the greatest sources of confidence is learning to stop depending on validation from other people. Many individuals unknowingly build their self-worth on whether they are accepted, admired, or chosen by someone else. When they receive attention, they feel valuable. When they experience rejection or indifference, they begin questioning themselves. This creates an emotional cycle where happiness depends on circumstances that are impossible to control. Lasting confidence cannot exist when your identity is determined by another person's opinion, because those opinions naturally change over time. True confidence begins when your value comes from your own character, discipline, and principles rather than from external approval. Seeking validation often changes the way people behave. They begin saying what they think others want to hear instead of expressing their genuine thoughts. They hide parts of their personality to avoid rejection, constantly seek reassurance, and become overly concerned with making a perfect impression. Although these behaviors may produce temporary approval, they prevent authentic connection because the relationship is built on performance rather than honesty. Real confidence allows you to communicate openly while respecting yourself, even if someone does not share your interests or feelings. Developing internal confidence requires investing in areas that are completely within your control. Every promise you keep to yourself, every goal you pursue with discipline, and every challenge you overcome strengthens your belief in your own abilities. Confidence grows through action, not through compliments. It comes from knowing that you can rely on yourself regardless of what other people think. This type of self-belief remains stable because it is based on your own experiences and efforts rather than on praise that may disappear tomorrow. When you no longer depend on validation, rejection also loses much of its emotional power. Instead of viewing someone's lack of interest as proof that you are not enough, you recognize that attraction, friendship, and compatibility are influenced by countless personal preferences and circumstances. You stop chasing approval because you understand that your worth is not determined by being chosen. This shift creates emotional freedom. You become more relaxed, more genuine, and more present in every interaction because you are no longer carrying the burden of trying to earn your value. As your confidence becomes rooted in your own standards rather than in outside opinions, your relationships naturally become healthier. You stop accepting poor treatment simply to avoid being alone, and you become more selective about the people you allow into your life. Instead of asking how to make everyone appreciate you, you begin asking whether your relationships reflect your values and mutual respect. This quiet confidence is difficult to imitate because it comes from a deep sense of self-worth that remains steady regardless of who offers praise. criticism, attention, or rejection. Authenticity is one of the most powerful qualities a person can develop because it creates trust, confidence, and genuine connection. Many people believe they need to perform, exaggerate, or become someone different in order to be accepted. They rehearse conversations, imitate personalities they admire, or pretend to have interests that are not truly their own. While these strategies may attract temporary attention, they rarely create meaningful relationships because they are built on an image rather than reality. Eventually, maintaining a performance becomes exhausting, and the real personality begins to emerge. Strong relationships are formed when people feel they are interacting with someone who is honest, comfortable with themselves, and consistent in both words and actions. Leading with authenticity begins by accepting that you do not need to impress everyone. Every person has different values, preferences, and personalities. Trying to become the perfect match for every individual is impossible because what attracts one person may not attract another. Emotionally confident people understand this, so they focus on expressing their true character instead of constantly adjusting themselves to gain approval. They speak honestly, share their genuine opinions respectfully, and allow others to decide naturally whether there is compatibility. Authenticity also requires self-awareness. Knowing your strengths, weaknesses, values, and goals allows you to communicate with greater clarity because you are no longer pretending to be someone else. You do not exaggerate your achievements, hide your interests, or agree with everything simply to avoid disagreement. Instead, you remain respectful while expressing your real perspective. This creates a sense of consistency that people notice over time. They know what to expect from you because your behavior is guided by principles rather than by the desire to impress. Another important part of authenticity is emotional honesty. This does not mean sharing every private thought or emotion with everyone you meet. It means being sincere about your intentions and communicating without manipulation or hidden agendas. People naturally feel more comfortable around someone whose actions match their words because trust grows through consistency. Confidence becomes visible when you are no longer trying to control every impression and instead focus on being fully present in the conversation. As you practice authenticity, communication becomes simpler and more enjoyable. You stop worrying about remembering a performance because there is no performance to maintain. Your confidence comes from accepting yourself rather than seeking constant approval. Conversations become opportunities to discover genuine compatibility instead of competitions to win someone's attention. Over time, this honesty attracts healthier relationships built on mutual respect and shared values. The strongest connections are rarely created by those who pretend to be perfect, but by those who are comfortable enough to show their real character with confidence, integrity, and quiet self-respect. Listening deeply and responding with purpose are among the most valuable communication skills because they create genuine understanding instead of superficial conversation. Many people enter discussions with their attention focused on what they will say next, rather than on what the other person is actually expressing. They wait impatiently for their turn to speak, interrupt with their own experiences, or mentally prepare the next response before the other person has finished talking. This habit weakens communication because it shifts the focus away from understanding and toward performance. People naturally feel more comfortable around someone who makes them feel heard, respected, and understood. Deep listening begins with complete presence. Instead of becoming distracted by your own thoughts, your phone, or the desire to impress, you direct your full attention toward the person speaking. You notice not only the words they choose, but also their tone of voice, facial expressions, and emotions. Sometimes the most important part of a conversation is not the information being shared, but the feeling behind it. By paying attention to these details, you gain a more complete understanding of the person's perspective and can respond with empathy rather than assumption. Responding with purpose means allowing your words to grow naturally from what has already been shared. Rather than changing the subject or trying to steer every conversation toward yourself, you acknowledge the other person's thoughts before adding your own perspective. This creates a balanced exchange where both individuals feel valued. Purposeful responses also show emotional maturity because they demonstrate that you are interested in meaningful communication rather than simply filling silence with unnecessary words. This approach encourages trust because it communicates genuine respect. When people realize you are truly listening, they become more comfortable expressing themselves honestly. They feel less judged and more willing to share their experiences because they know you are not simply waiting for an opportunity to speak. This mutual respect strengthens the quality of the interaction and creates a foundation for healthier relationships built on understanding rather than competition. Listening deeply also improves your confidence. You no longer feel pressure to constantly entertain, impress, or prove your intelligence because you understand that valuable conversations are created through shared participation. Short moments of silence no longer feel uncomfortable because you are focused on understanding instead of performing. Your responses become more thoughtful, relevant, and sincere because they are based on careful observation rather than impulsive reaction. Over time, this habit transforms the way people experience your presence. They remember you not because you spoke the most, but because you made them feel genuinely heard, respected, and appreciated, creating stronger and more meaningful connections through attentive communication and purposeful response. Maintaining your standards and respecting your own boundaries is one of the strongest expressions of self-respect because it shows that your values are not dependent on another person's approval. Many people abandon their principles the moment they fear losing someone's interest. They ignore behavior that makes them uncomfortable, constantly change their opinions to avoid disagreement, or accept treatment they would normally reject simply because they do not want the relationship to end. While this may seem like a way to preserve a connection, it often weakens both confidence and mutual respect. Healthy relationships are built when both people can remain true to themselves without sacrificing their dignity. Standards are the principles that guide your decisions. They define how you expect to be treated, how you choose to treat others, and what behaviors you are willing to accept in your life. Boundaries are the actions you take to protect those standards. If someone repeatedly disrespects your time, ignores your values, or behaves in ways that consistently damage your peace, a healthy boundary allows you to address the situation calmly and, if necessary, create distance. Boundaries are not designed to control another person. They exist to protect your own emotional well-being and maintain relationships based on mutual respect. People who value themselves understand that saying no is sometimes an act of honesty rather than rejection. They do not feel obligated to agree with everything, accept every request, or remain in situations that conflict with their values. Instead of seeking approval through endless compromise, they communicate their limits respectfully and consistently. This creates trust because others know their behavior is guided by principles rather than by fear of being disliked. Maintaining standards also prevents emotional dependence. When your entire focus becomes keeping another person interested, you begin making decisions based on anxiety instead of wisdom. You tolerate disrespect, overlook warning signs, and ignore your own needs because you believe losing the relationship would be worse than losing yourself. Emotionally strong individuals recognize that no connection is worth sacrificing their integrity. They understand that genuine relationships grow through honesty, consistency, and shared respect, not through constant self-sacrifice. Over time, people naturally recognize those who maintain clear standards with calm confidence. You become known as someone who treats others with kindness, while also expecting the same level of respect in return. Your relationships become healthier because they are built on honesty instead of fear, and your confidence grows because your actions remain aligned with your values. When you consistently protect your standards and boundaries, you create an environment where trust, respect, and authentic connection can develop naturally, allowing relationships to strengthen without requiring you to compromise the principles that define your character. Building a meaningful life that attracts rather than pursues begins with understanding that your greatest source of confidence should come from the life you create, not from the attention you receive. Many people unknowingly place relationships at the center of their identity, believing that happiness, fulfillment, or success will finally arrive when someone chooses them. As a result, they postpone personal growth, neglect their ambitions, and allow their emotional state to depend on another person's presence. This creates an unhealthy imbalance because their sense of purpose becomes attached to something they cannot fully control. Emotionally strong individuals reverse this pattern by making their own growth, values, and mission the foundation of their lives. A meaningful life is built through consistent investment in yourself. It means developing your skills, strengthening your physical and mental health, pursuing work that challenges you, nurturing genuine friendships, and living according to principles that give your life direction. Every day spent improving yourself adds another layer of confidence because your self-worth becomes connected to progress instead of approval. You no longer wake up wondering who will notice you. Instead, your attention shifts toward becoming a better version of yourself through disciplined action and continuous learning. Purpose also changes the way you approach relationships. Instead of looking for someone to complete your life, you begin looking for someone who can complement the life you are already building. This mindset removes pressure because you are no longer seeking rescue, validation, or constant reassurance. You are simply inviting another person to share a journey that already has direction. Relationships formed from this perspective tend to be healthier because they are based on mutual respect and shared values rather than emotional dependence. Living with purpose naturally creates confidence that cannot be manufactured through clever words or temporary performance. People notice when someone is passionate about meaningful goals, disciplined in daily habits, and emotionally balanced during challenges. These qualities communicate stability because they reflect consistent effort rather than short-term attempts to impress. Even during periods of rejection or disappointment, a person with purpose continues moving forward because their motivation comes from within rather than from external circumstances. As your life becomes centered on growth and purpose, chasing attention gradually loses its appeal. You become more selective about where you invest your time because you understand that your energy is valuable. You appreciate genuine connections, but you no longer depend on them to define your identity. Your confidence remains steady, whether others praise you or overlook you, because it is rooted in the person you are becoming. This quiet strength creates a presence that others naturally respect, not because you demanded attention, but because your character, discipline, and purpose speak more powerfully than any attempt to seek approval ever could.